Hi viewers, in this video, let's discuss MySQL subqueries, right? How to write subqueries in MySQL. So before starting this video, make sure that you watch my previous videos to understand how to write simple select statements, how to use where clauses, how to use functions like average, minimum, maximum, aggregate functions, how to use group by statements, how to use joins, all kinds of joins, right? So make sure and aliases, right? How to use aliases while writing select statements. So make sure you practice all that before watching this video, right? So all that content is there in my previous video. So please follow the playlist. That is one thing. The second most important thing is subqueries is very, very, very important concept, and you will use this at your job. So very, very important concept. So please make sure you pay attention to every example that I'm going to share in this video. First and foremost, what is MySQL subquery? MySQL subquery is a query nested within another query, right? Whether it is a select statement, insert statement, update statement, delete statement, you can use subqueries in any of those statements you write, right? So in this example, we're going to focus on select statement alone, but in future videos, I'm going to also give you examples for insert and update and delete statements as well, right? So basically, a subquery can be nested within another subquery basically as well, right? So a subquery is called a inner query, right? So basically in this example, the first example, this is the subquery where we are selecting all the book IDs whose sale amount is greater than $40. And this is called the subquery. This subquery is called inner query, and the outer query is here, right? And it can be also called as main query, right? So what we are doing is in the where clause, the book ID will look up all the book IDs, right? Whose sale amount is greater than 40. So which means in this example, the subquery will execute first, pass on those book IDs to this main query, and basing upon those book IDs, that the corresponding author IDs and the book titles will be displayed as an output, right? So if I execute this statement, you can see all the books, right, written by various authors um, whose sale amount is greater than $40. Now coming back to next example where we are using not in statement. Not in statement, again, if you observe here, the subquery is pulling all the books whose sale amount is greater than 40, but the operator that we're using is not in. Instead of in, we're using not in, which means all the books that have no sale amount, that the sale amount of all the books that are not greater than $40 is what is going to be selected as a display item here because of not in, right? So in these two examples, one of the observation that you need to make is the subquery is executed first, right? That is the first statement that evaluated first, and then the data is passed to the main query or the outer query, right? That's the main thing you need to keep in mind. So if I execute this statement here, you can see these are all the books whose sale amount is not greater than $40. And also you can see some nulls here for author IDs because that's a faulty data that exists in our source system. So uh, maybe the data entry operator accidentally forgot to enter the author IDs of authors for a specific book, right? So, but anyway, moving on to the next one is correlated subquery. And we're also using a comparison operator. What is a comparison operator, right? Operators like greater than, which I'm using here, right? Right here is greater than and less than and greater than or equal to, less than or equal to are the most popular operators out there. So I'm trying to give you an example of how to use those operators within the subqueries as well, right? But in here, why do I call it as correlated, right? If you observe in my previous example, the subquery is passing the values to the inner query is passing the values to the outer query, right? So so correlated subquery is a subquery that uses the data from the outer query, right? The outer query, right? And the the correlated subquery depends on the outer query. For example, the sale amount is what is dictating, comparing with the average sale amount here. So basically what it is doing is pulling record by record from the book sales and comparing the sale amount of each book with the average sale amount of the books that are sold within the bookstore, right? Average sale amount. So with that being said, the a correlated subquery is evaluated once for each row in the outer query, which means first it select book number 1, right? Whose sale amount probably $40. And if $40 is greater than average sale amount of the books, right, then it will output that result, right? So for example, just to give you an example, you can execute the subquery here. The average sale amount is $43. So in our previous example, if I say 40 greater than 43, no, right, it will not display that record. But if there is if the sale amount of a book is greater than $43, it's gonna display, right? So in this case, book 8 has $44, right? The sale amount is $44. So hence, it displayed the results, right? So keep this in mind. There is a fundamental difference between a correlated subquery and a subquery which is used within the where clause, right? So those are two different use cases, right? So the next example we will move is subqueries in the from clause, right? So the difference between the examples that you have seen above and this is the subquery is also treated as a table and used it to join with another tables, right? So for example, I'm gonna try to use a very simple example as step 1, and as we move to next example, you will see like more use cases towards it, right? The first example, like I said, it's pretty simple. So this is the subquery, right? In this subquery, what we are doing is we are displaying authors and book IDs and the copies of books that got sold by author ID and the book he has written, right? He or she has written, right? So for that, we are collecting this author ID, book ID, sale ID information from the book sales table, and we are joining just to get the author ID and book ID. We are joining with books table on book ID equal to book ID. Because we are using the count function here, which is an aggregate function, so we are grouping by the columns that we are displaying here, right? So then if I select this statement, this is the subquery, right? If I select this statement, it will display author ID, book ID, and the copies of books that got sold by that specific author and book, right? And now here, this is very important concept here is aliasing, right? So I can also alias the subquery here, right? I'm aliasing it as US, right? US means unit sales. So now in the main query, what we're displaying is we're displaying the author ID from the subquery. And what we're doing is units sold. We are taking the minimum of units sold, right? And the maximum of units sold, right? By an author, right? So an author can have like 1 book sold or 3 books sold, or he can have like just 1 book sold, minimum 1 book sold and maximum 1 book sold. That's what it is, right? 1 to 1, right? Or some others can be like 2 books sold, minimum 2 books sold, and two is the max they have sold as well, right? So so if you execute this SQL, so it's going to display all the authors and the minimum books that were sold and the maximum books quantities that got sold as well, right? So that is something you can display out of the first SQL. When you move on to the second SQL, if you observe here, author ID doesn't make any sense, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 doesn't make any sense. If you attach some names for the author, then it will be more descriptive. Hence, what we are going to do is, this is a subquery again, right? The same subquery as above, right? This is a subquery. The difference is we are joining with authors on a.author equal to the alias, right? us.author ID, right? Unit sales.author ID. So what it does is, in this example, what we're trying to show is you can also join a subquery to another table, right? So this is the example that shows you how to join a subquery to another table, and also we are displaying something more descriptive for others, right? So when I execute the SQL, you can see now in the previous example we are using author ID. In this example we are using author details. So author one sold minimum sold 2 books and maximum 2 books as well. Author 6 at the minimum he sold 1 book and then maximum of 3 books. So that's what this query does, right? So we're adding more descriptive other details, and also we showed you how to join a subquery to a table. Now, going on to the next example, I'm using right outer join in this example, right? So in here we are using join. Here I'm using right outer join, which means I want to display all the others, right? Irrespective of whether they sold a book or not, I want to display all the others, and then the minimum books they sold and maximum books they have sold, right? So that's the only way to do that is having a right outer join will display all the others and the corresponding statistics related to that author as well, right? If you observe here, other two sold some books, but other three he did not sell any books, right? Where he has nulls on both places. Same with other 9 as well, nulls with on both places as well, right? So now here we know that who are all the others who are productive, and some of the other books are not, well received by the community out there, right? So these are typical examples that you will be using at your work. Please make sure you practice with other examples you find online as well. Like I said, it's very, very, very important concept. Please make sure you practice.